what? Let's also delve a little deeper, take a look at what else is there to discuss when it comes to this particular visit. There's a lot because you have Dosti defense deals and dialogue. That is something that we'll be discussing with Atul Keshav, President USIBC, who joins us right now. Atul, thank you so much for taking time out and joining us today. I wanted to firstly talk about, when you talk about the possibilities in defense ties, if the US then wants to push selling defense products to India, is it an important piece for India to accept a deal, even if it might be expensive for Delhi to accept it?
Well, I mean, look, this is a sovereign decision for India. And India does have over $650 billion in foreign currency reserves, and it's a growing economy and a growing tax base thanks to the GST reforms. So India has more and more capability to afford these things, but this is where you negotiate. And India also has to decide if it wants world-class deterrence with world-class military platforms with a proven track record of reliability and capability. And if the US and India can talk together about what those needs are and how they can be addressed, I think there's a very collaborative frame in which things can be done. There's already a little bit of co-production happening in the Indian aerospace industry around Hyderabad between your private sector and our private sector. Why don't we double down on that? You know, maybe there are elements of shipbuilding that can be done between the United States and India where we share our collaborative advantage in order to make the costs lower and the production faster, and that would enhance our shared national deterrence. We could do that in fighter planes. We could do that in drone manufacturing. You know, there's no limit to what we could do if we decide to break down bureaucratic barriers, take it as a sense of partnership, and identify the needs and then fill them. You know, at the end of the day, our competitors are racing ahead. This is a foot race. We have to get ahead as well. And so I would hope that our bureaucracies can be creative. And this is where the personal relationship between the president and the prime minister can lend an air of possibility. Because if bureaucrats and policymakers think that they can go to their bosses to break down barriers, much can be achieved. And so I would hope that we would use a clean sheet of paper to think about how we can really leverage this moment.
All right, no limit to what India and US can do if the bureaucratic barriers then are broken. But I also wanted to talk to you about the AI and IT ecosystem then. It's important for India to import tech to further its AI and IT ecosystem, but US putting strictures in place at this point. It's not really about barriers then, isn't it?
So here's the thing. You got to look at it from the American perspective. We have faced so much leakage of our technological edge over the years. If you look at all of the planes that the Chinese field, a lot of them are just copies of American aircraft. And they have obtained those secrets and that technology in very untoward ways. And if you look at what has happened in the past few years on AI, even in the past few weeks on AI, there is a healthy degree of concern in official Washington about the further dissemination of the American technological edge in a way that ends up leaking to our strategic adversaries. And this is what is causing a bit of a pause, a bit of reticence in taking things to the next level with many of our key partners and allies. So I think this is something that's under very close scrutiny in the early days of the Trump administration. How do we leverage the strength and genius of our societies to win the AI foot race or the defense foot race without having all of our innovation flow to societies that are structured in a way where innovation is not possible, but that copying or even stealing is the way forward in trying to keep up with us. And so if the Indian and American sides can agree on protocols that really strictly control the human and technological penetration into our systems that could result in leaks that are disadvantageous, then I think we can have a good basis of going forward. But I think it's important to consider and accept that in Washington over the past few years, there's been growing and intensifying alarm at the loss of our technological edge through, unacceptable means.
Well, absolutely. I also wanted to talk to you about the level playing field that you mentioned, because talking about free movement as well as skilled professionals, there's a pushback on that account when it comes to the US. So how do you then ensure that this level playing field is provided?
So at the end of the day, the president is the lead foreign policy official under our constitutional system. And he has spoken very, very clearly about skilled labor and skilled workers and skilled immigration. And indeed, he has talked for years about the need for coherent immigration reform in the United States. I work for the US Chamber of Commerce. The Chamber of Commerce has been very clear about the importance of having skilled workers be able to move around to the places in companies where they can have the most impact. And the truth is that in terms of the availability of skilled workers, there's no country other than India that has the scale of skilled talent that is essential for the operations of world-class companies. There is no other place on earth that compares to India. So we have to have a conversation as friends. We have to see how we can make this a win-win. This is where, leaders meet and then they task their staff with coming up with coherent outcomes that are good for one another. At the end of the day, President Trump, Prime Minister Modi want what's good for their people. And on the skilled worker issue and H-1Bs, immigration, as long as it's lawful, as long as it's regulated and controlled by the governments, then it's a good thing. And let's work toward ensuring that that pipeline exists in a way that benefits both of our industrial bases, American and Indian.
All right, thank you so much, Atul, for taking time out and joining us bright and early this morning. At the end of the day, both the leaders want whatever is good for their people. And that's the takeaway coming in from Atul Keshup as well of USIBC. But with